The Journey of Squarepeg, Chapter 16, Reborn. It was the dead of night when I woke from my dream. The stillness and the rhythmic breathing of my children confirmed it. Turning my head as I swam back into consciousness, I noticed Helen dozing in a nearby chair while the children slept. They lay in a huddle of hot limbs, top and tail, on a low and sagging sofa, in what seemed to be a mess room. They were braced with each other and the teddy bear against the cold of the drafty building. The roof creaked in chorus with the wind as rain lashed the windows. Dazed, I raised my heavy head to take in my surroundings. The room felt familiar, but it was unrecognizable. There was no light to illuminate its hidden corners beyond what filtered through the curtains. Weary still, I let my head flop back to the cushion and fell back to sleep, this time utterly dreamless, comforted that my family were close at hand. The next morning, the sun shining through the window lit upon my children playing quietly on the grubby carpet at our feet. Becoming restless, I slowly sat up, and after a while slipped my legs off the edge of what turned out to be an occasional bed to a chorus of excitement as they noticed my movement. Helen called to them to go steady, but they clambered on me all the same, arms draping around my neck, kisses on my cheeks. In the bin by the door, a yellow medical waste bag was full with stained dressings, which had accumulated as Helen had tended to me. Amongst the debris, the containers of high-dosage penicillin and bottles of sodium chloride solution lay empty. A training manual was left open on a chair by the door, and syringes collected in a mug on the canteen table, well out of reach of the children. "Any insulin?" I asked my wife, who watched me quietly from her vantage point at the curtained window. She rolled her lips inward, shaking her head apologetically. For the first time in many years, she looked pleased to see me. I looked everywhere. "I've found some other useful stuff which is packed already. The cart is ready in the garage when you're up to moving. We've been here nearly 4 days." "That long?" I furrowed my brow, shaking my head in disbelief. I felt like I'd slept only one long nightmare-shattered night. "I was scared for you. Michael has helped with the children and been out scavenging. We prayed for you each day, and I'm afraid you might feel a bit like a pincushion too." She smiled nervously. Her eyes were warm. "The wound. How does it look?" I replied, shaking my head still. She smiled with satisfaction. "Super glue from the desk in the office. You were lucky it missed the vitals. I think it skimmed under the surface rather than getting deep into the muscle. Not so bad, even if it can't have been clean. You were feverish until I gave you the shots." "What was it? I can't have just been blood poisoning." "I don't know," she replied, "but the gardens around here had a lot of good plants in them. You were lucky." At that moment, my son, who had been in the garage, came back with a steaming large cup of sweet black tea. "I guess," he said in a strange, new, deep voice, "that the one thing an ambulance station can guarantee to have is tea bags." He handed me the mug and presented, with the flair of a magician, 3 stale biscuits too. "It wasn't easy keeping these from the girls," he said as he pressed them into my hand, "but I figured you'd need them more than us this time." I beckoned him to me, broke 2 of the biscuits in half, ate the other, and begged him to share the halves with the family. "I'm proud of you, son. You did so well back there." He nodded awkwardly, but said nothing. Smiles around followed on the tails of the sugar rush. "I must try to stand," I said, and Michael helped me to my feet, but the sudden drop in my blood pressure sent me instantly back to my seat. "You need to regain your strength, Dad," he suggested, a determined edge to his voice. "Better to rest and eat. We have another surprise for you anyway." And with that, my 2 little girls, fatter and cleaner for their break in this building, working as only the best teams can, dragged from the dark kitchen a burlap sack laden with tinned food of all kinds. There was too much to take with us, there was no need to ration it, and as I ate my share, my stomach woke up from its deep sleep too. Soon, for the first time in as long as I could remember, my every craving was satisfied, and we feasted into the night, feasted as if we had not eaten in weeks. No morsel was wasted, everything was savoured. 2 more days passed before I felt strong enough to bear the idea of travelling. The injury, which was healing well, still oozed slightly at its tips. I did not want to risk making it worse, but it was equally foolish to push our luck by staying any longer. It could only be a matter of time before our presence there was noticed. "Are you sure?" asked Helen, as I shared my plan with her. "We have to keep moving," I replied. "I'm as good as I can be, thanks to you." She nodded and began to prepare. "I'm sorry," I added. "I'm sorry for what I said before." But she seemed not to hear me. Having rifled through every drawer and cupboard in the station, we loaded our cart once again, and grimacing at the noise of the roller door as it opened, headed out into the night air. Before we left, my son's preparations caught my attention. His sister's damp clothes were clipped onto the exterior of the cart to dry. Unasked, he'd checked the radios and torch batteries, and organised the girl's dress for the evening as we packed. He was maturing before my eyes, stepping up to the plate to protect his family and daily routines to match his bravery in the fray. I was proud of him, really proud. I just didn't tell him often enough. The change in both of them was stark, virtually tangible, and certainly reassuring. They had adapted to the circumstances and demonstrated their mettle. It was clear that they understood and were able to adapt to the new order. For my part, I was conflicted. I had been a burden to them when they could clearly now take care of themselves. They had waited patiently and tended to me, taken risks to provide for and protect me, despite the difficult history we shared. Dark thoughts turned over and over in my head. What good was I now, limping along at the rear? Was I a liability that crushed the joy from their lives? Was my presence the best thing for them? They could fight, forage, take care of themselves and each other. They had stealth, wisdom, and a sense of joy in each other's company. In their quick thinking and resourcefulness, by their endurance, they had conquered. I hoped I would regain my strength and be able to shoulder my share of the burden again soon, to add to their existence rather than complicate it. The chance couldn't come soon enough for me. As we walked, our footsteps echoed in the abandoned streets. No street lamps lit the ancient cobbles or mottled stone walls. No candlelight shone in the tiny windows of the cottages lining the streets of the old town. To the casual observer it was deserted, but here and there telltale signs of human occupation could be seen in the darkness, confirming the sense of being observed that accompanied us on our journey. In silence we each walked with our weapons ready, eyes scanning all around. We were wary now of the danger people could present, on sea or on land, and we were ready and willing to protect ourselves if we had to. The following morning found us camped a few miles further north, with rolling fallow land stretching out from our vantage point near a forest. We were almost alone. After foraging in the fields, we lay in long grass and listened to the hum of an insect metropolis, the alien objects of uncounted, peering eyes.